Welcome to episode 161 of Timm Talk, the podcast about the DC animated universe co-created by Bruce Timm. I am Chris Lord.
I'm Cameron Dexter.
And we're back this week. We're wrapping up soon with Static Shock here. A couple of mediocre episodes with some big moments in them.
I really like these episodes. And not in like the normal jokey like these episodes, but I genuinely enjoy these episodes.
I have thoughts. I definitely have thoughts. But before we get to that, some news to catch up on since we took last week off. Let's start out with some DC related stuff, since technically that would be the purview of the podcast.
And almost physically directs or connects to us.
Yes, exactly. This one actually connects to us. So as people may have seen within the last couple of weeks, there was basically a massive sweep of layoffs at Warner Brothers, specifically involving like DC and a lot of their online stuff, basically DC Universe, pretty much foremost. That in combination with an interview with Jim Lee recently, who's still the chief creative officer there, who said that all of the original DC Universe content is moving its way over to HBO Max. Basically means that, as we've been saying, like this thing is going to die imminently. I don't know when. I'm doing a mad scramble to get caught up on various like TV shows and comics content.
You messaged me last week saying you just did the long haul work of organizing with the entire Grant Morrison run.
Yes.
Into chronological order.
I will plug that next week when I'm done. I've made it through almost all of it. I'm on to Batman Incorporated right now. I
remember Batman Inc. I read that one. I actually read that one. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I mean, it's fine so far. I just got started with it. I have a lot of thoughts about Grant Morrison as a writer. I have even more thoughts about just the absolute insanity that is trying to read comics and crossovers and stuff like that. But that will probably be a lengthy rant. So I'm gonna say that for next week, and that'll be part of my like actual plugs is the Grant Morrison run, and I will put out, for everyone else's benefit, the definitive list that I come up with of how to read those comics. But I have to like test that my reading method works as I'm reading them. And so far it's been pretty solid.
I feel like you set up like a Zoom call style screen that just like every like person on the call has a different page open. And you're like, okay, I'm reading the 2006 Batman run. And then like, oh, he disappeared. It's time to read Blackest Night for a couple issues, and then the third screen is what's the one that I love that everyone hates, where Batman is traveling through time?
Oh, The Return of Bruce Wayne.
Yes, The Return of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's so much fun though. It's Pirate Batman with Cowboy Batman and Caveman Batman. Okay,
I will get into it next week. Once I'm done. So many thoughts. It would only drag out the episode for me to get into them now, and we have a lot to talk about in terms of news. But I mean, look, DC Universe, it's on its way out, and it's also just sad because a bunch of people lost their jobs. People in the same entertainment space that we're in, and also we've both been big advocates for DC Universe as a platform up to this point. I mean, it was a unique experiment. I think we knew when it came out that it was not going to last forever. But it's done a lot of things really well up to this point. It was a really unique opportunity to do a dedicated fan space for all the stuff that we love, and the fact that it's going away it's sad to see. So
I wonder if they'll make any announcements about it at Fandom coming next weekend.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is that there's obviously been a lack of broader DC news. Probably anticipation of that. I'm sure it was a strategic move on their part to announce a bunch of bad news, like, oh, we're going to do a shitload of layoffs and DC Universe is absolutely going to die. But don't worry, in 2 weeks, we're going to have a big event and everyone's going to be super, super excited about
HBO DC coming to you soon.
Oh God. But no, it is really, really unfortunate. And so, obviously we're thinking about all those folks that lost their jobs, because it sucks for all the other things that are going right now to then also lose your job too. And especially people who are really passionate about what they do over at DC Universe. It's just shitty.
Yeah.
But on the lines of DC and one of those biggest competitors, Disney.
Nailed it.
They made a couple very interesting announcements, and because we took last week off, we haven't had a chance to talk about it really. But I'd say the biggest thing they announced recently was that Mulan, the long delayed film due to the COVID lockdown, is officially going to become a
Disney Plus premiere exclusive.
yes, thank you. A Disney Plus premiere. Love that they found a way to throw that word in there.
Yep.
Exclusive, which basically means that if you pay $30, you get access to Mulan forever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not quite a rental. It's basically just they've incorporated a paywall behind an existing streaming platform, which I feel like this is precedent breaking in many ways. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first subscription based platform that is now offering premium paywall content, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of throw in Amazon Prime in those movies, but
I kind of don't, because Amazon also they had an existing like rental and purchase platform in place.
Yeah, you don't need Prime to buy those movies.
Yeah, like for me, I feel like this is the first time that a streaming platform, so you want to talk about like a Hulu, a Netflix, a Disney Plus, something that you basically just go, okay, I pay a certain amount a month and I get access to all their content. This is the first of them to then go, well, yes, but
Right.
I mean, what are your thoughts about all this? This is definitely your topic, your favorite topic of conversation. So.
It is movie theaters and Disney. I think a lot of people are upset with the price point, because $30 is steeper than most movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's about another 50% on top of the most expensive rentals right now.
Yeah, and being in LA, we do have the most expensive movie theater. So this is a $30 ticket is 1.5 LA movie tickets.
Yeah, pretty much.
So like from that perspective, I've been telling people like the $30 seems fair, because it's, even for other people, it's multiple movie tickets.
Yeah. I think even for most places, I think a movie ticket's probably between $10-15 outside of LA, right?
Yeah, in Kansas, I remember tickets being like 10 normal and then 12 for like the IMAX 3D experience.
Okay. Yeah, so if you think about it, this is a family movie, so you're probably going to be having 2+ people going and see this as a group. It kind of balances out.
Yeah, and we don't know we also don't know the level of security of like if, cause I mean it's the same with Amazon Prime. Like announcing this on air seems wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like on Prime, I have 2 friends in San Fran and New York who we do movie nights together, and so one of us will buy a movie on my account, and then we all just watch it together.
Yeah.
Which seems fine. And then I feel like I don't know how Disney will be able to tell if I buy it under my name on my Disney Plus account, but then my niece and nephew in Colorado who have their own page on my account also just sign into mine.
I imagine it'll just be connected with the overall account, not with the users on the account. Yeah. Because I don't think there'd be a way for them to like differentiate that really.
Yeah. So in that sense, I also laugh at my family who are like, majority doctors mooching off me for the cheapest streaming service.
Of course. Yeah. But I mean, so look, I think this is all very interesting that they decided to do this. I mean, I think it was kind of inevitable. I can understand why they wouldn't want to just put this on Disney Plus. That feels kind of like
this is a $1 billion film.
Yeah, it's just like just scuttling the film. So, and I think I read today that it's like they would need to basically sell like 29 million units to approximate like their $1 billion box office. But the thing is, that might be a little bit high, but there's a couple things to factor in. One is Disney's already reached their 5-year subscriber goal in just 8 months after launching. They've already hit 60 million subscribers, which is insane. Also not too surprising. So look, even if you get 10% of that, even if you get 6 million, that's still a lot, right? That's what? So if I could do math at the top of my head, this would be a lot faster. 6 million times 30. Okay, so that's like, okay, what, 180 million just from that alone. It'll probably be more than 10%. But also, right now, some theatrical markets are still open or are already opening.
Most international markets are open. And so I
Yeah,
think that's why they had to do this quick digital push.
Yeah, because let's be honest, this movie is made for China, not for the United States.
Yeah.
And I think most Chinese theaters are open again, or at least they are in the process of reopening at this point.
I believe their biggest chain is open.
Okay.
So they're AMC.
Yeah, and Disney is desperate for money right now, as is pretty much everybody. But I think this makes a lot of sense for them to do with this. But also, let's be honest, this isn't even about Mulan. This is about Black Widow.
Oh, you think so?
I genuinely think this is a test bed. They're testing to see how this works. They're testing to see
because I would have flipped it if that's your hypothesis. I would have put Black Widow first as the test for Mulan.
No. Because I think there are far greater implications. Like Mulan's a one-off. At the end of the day, Mulan's a one-off. Like if they need to make money, but it's not like they're hinging a whole franchise, their biggest franchise on it. But Black Widow, it's precedent breaking. They're doing this with one film. It would be insane if they did this with an MCU film, which, I think that's their biggest money makers. Even if Black Widow is maybe not going to make, Avengers money, which I doubt it will, it still is critical, right? I mean, it's the big difference is what happens with Black Widow will probably be setting up stuff on their TV shows that are going to go on Disney Plus. It's going to be setting up things that are going to happen in subsequent movies down the line. It's probably going to be setting the framework for what happens in Phase 4. There's, the whole rest of their franchise is waiting on the release of Black Widow, even just from a storytelling and a plot perspective. And they can only keep delaying these things so long because they have so many movies stacked up. Mm-hmm. And the pressure's building for everyone to release something in any sort of capacity, but especially something like an MCU film is huge. I genuinely believe that they're testing out to see how Mulan does in terms of the response into doing premiere pricing, the actual price of it itself, what the breakdown is between people who buy it off of Disney Plus, people who go to see it in the theaters in opening markets or markets that are open. Because if this goes well for them, then I think they may feel more comfortable releasing Black Widow on Disney Plus. And if you think about it, if they do that, everyone will end up getting it.
Yeah, the floodgates are open at that point.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm probably not going to get Mulan. I'll probably just wait to watch it with you at some point because I know you will.
Oh, I'm going to buy it first day, of course.
Of course you are, but even though you're not even excited about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they put out Black Widow, all of a sudden, anyone who wants to see that movie and wants to see it quickly because they don't want things spoiled for them, people are going to do it. I'll do it. I'll pay $30 to watch Black Widow on, DC or on. I keep wanting to say DC Universe on Disney Plus. And the thing is then I'll have it presumably indefinitely on that platform as well. And that's probably where I'll end up watching a lot of stuff going forward, anyways. So I think a good part of the reason they're doing this Mulan is just to see what their possible alternative release strategy could be for Black Widow and for the rest of the MCU.
Yeah, and I think doing it in August is also a smart play because obviously this virus is not going away anytime soon. And with the huge slate that is prepped for November, December, I think to your point exactly, this really opens, I'm definitely expecting some pack, special bundles, a Christmas bundle or Thanksgiving bundle of you can get a year of Disney Plus plus Black Widow for $60.
Yeah.
Or even doing I just realized Nintendo's been doing this for a couple years now. Where for Super Smash Brothers, they periodically will add a new character. Usually about every 4 to 6 months, they'll add a new player to fight with. And instead of buying them individually, they have something called a Smash Pass, which is different than the Smash Pass in West Hollywood.
Hey, the Smash Passes are canceled right now in West Hollywood.
That is true. That is true. No one's getting that punch card.
Nope.
But basically, if you just have enough trust in Nintendo and their characters, you can pay them $40 up front, and just whenever they announce the character, you just already get it. Or you can pay, I think it's like $12 per character, and you get 5 characters for $40.
Yeah.
Or if you buy them individually, it's $10 per character. So you basically save $10.
Yeah. No, look,
I definitely see if this works out, Disney 100% doing something similar to that, of having like a Marvel premiere pass. It's like you'll get a year's worth of Marvel slated films immediately for $50.
Yeah. No, I mean, let's be honest. Like the circumstances around COVID and the lockdown did not change distribution in the industry. It accelerated changes that were inevitably going to happen. It made those changes necessities. And everything was already switching towards a subscription model. Now it's going to be a subscription model with a paywall. And it's going to just get, further siloed. I mean, before we started the call, you told me that Disney has another streaming platform they're launching, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up in a second. Yeah. I've also had this conversation with a few people. I expect in the next 3 years, Disney will put a bid in for Cinemark.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that.
Because I was thinking about it being AMC, because obviously all the crazy shit going on right now. I was expecting like a bidding war between Disney and WB over AMC rights.
Yeah.
But then I realized all these articles saying AMC is the biggest international chain are a fucking lie. AMC is nowhere near the biggest international chain. AMC stands for American Movie Center.
Well, but isn't that the most American thing ever? Just to assume because it's the biggest thing in America, it's the biggest thing in the rest of the world?
Yeah, it's not Center, Cineplex, American Movie Cineplex. It's not Center.
I don't know.
Cinema, whatever.
The only word in that sentence that matters is America.
Is America, yeah.
America.
Because I looked into this, and I'm like, they have like maybe like 10 theaters set up outside of America. Cinemark is the biggest American chain internationally.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
And so I definitely see Disney putting in a bid for that. Warner probably putting in a bid for Regal, because that's the second biggest American chain.
Yeah.
And then, the rest of the big studios putting in their bids for the other ones. And then I am in this future, I'm imagining, what's the pretentious one? Alamo Drafthouse.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be the ones that are going to come in and sweep up all these one-off theaters and kind of market
probably
this as the premier theater experience, or like the genuine theater experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm very sad for the future of the theater. Because even Chapek, when he was announcing Mulan coming out, he was very specific with his words of like, this is only going to happen once. It's not.
Nope. That's absolute bullshit.
This is like a, because of unusual circumstances situation, we have to get this movie out for the fans.
Nope.
And I'm like, you mean the fans being the board
Your
of directors?
bottom line? Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the real test ground, especially now that every studio has a streaming platform out.
Yeah. They're going to want their streaming platform. They're going to want their theater chain.
Yeah, this is going to, I think like you said, this is going to be the true test of the future.
Yeah. Now, tell me a little bit about this new Disney streaming platform, Star, because I literally had not heard about it until you mentioned it 5 minutes before the call.
Yes, I am shocked this is not getting any press right now. It was announced 2 weeks ago. JPEG had his first big public announcement as CEO, president, whatever his title is, as Bob Iger's shadow. And I'm already exhausted from his one announcement. Basically what's going on is JPEG announced that Disney is starting a second streaming service that is going to come out in 2021 known as Star. Not to be confused with the pre-existing service known as Stars that has existed for over 26 years.
Yep.
What a Disney move to just fucking steal that up.
Jesus.
but it's basically as he said, it's a new feature that is internationally focused, that will have shows and films from ABC, FX, Freeform, Searchlight, and 20th Century Studios.
Yeah.
It is.
So essentially everything else that's not specifically targeted towards Disney Plus because it's family friendly. It's all their like more adult content.
Yeah, and I mean realistically, it's all of their Hulu content.
Yeah, which is,
and so as we briefly said, this is Disney's way to just shut down Hulu in any way they can.
Which, like, from a shrewd business perspective, I can kind of see why they would do that. I mean, Hulu was built off of licensed content, right?
Yeah.
They were one of the first really widely accessible streaming platforms. They had tons of shows. They had, new run stuff too. Like that's where I watched The Good Place, and stuff would premiere on cable, and then it would go right up on Hulu.
Yeah, it was the first rival to Netflix.
Exactly, yeah, and it had the benefit of it all being new, whereas Netflix at the time was, only once something had come out on DVD, essentially, is when it went up on Netflix. So, they kind of got started at the gate, but as that sort of licensed content is now shifting towards the siloed streaming platforms, all the studios, the content on Hulu is going to diminish, and I can see why Disney would be like, okay, well, let's just create our own additional platform that's going to have all of like the not exclusively family friendly stuff that's on Disney Plus, and then eventually just kill Hulu.
Yeah, and I think it is something that kind of like you mentioned before, it was something that was destined to happen, especially with CBS All Access and Peacock. Those two kind of, in my opinion, fueled most of Hulu. Like, yeah. That content was a lot of their backlog.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
and ABC too had a lot of stuff
and ABC. And
well.
I'm sure once those contracts end, Hulu doesn't have enough original programming like Netflix does to stand on its own.
No. And the stuff that's popular, they can just transition over to Star, or if it's, produced out of another studio, they can always just shift it over to their own streaming platform.
Exactly. Yeah. The same thing they did with Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
Which I am, slight tangent. I finished the season of Doom Patrol.
Okay.
But it's not the finale because they never got to film the finale.
And so really?
Yeah, because they were still in the middle of filming when quarantine hit.
Oh.
And they were on their last episode.
So
they just repositioned the second to last episode with the huge cliffhanger for the finale as the new finale.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so I'm like, every character is in a very bad position right now. And I'm like, it's the same way in like Titans in season 1, where it just ended with the big bad coming out and like Robin getting brainwashed. It's like, that's it. Good luck until next year.
Okay, because I haven't watched season 2 yet. I was very excited to see that it was fewer episodes. I think it was like 8 or 9 instead of 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to ask you if it's worth starting to watch now, but maybe I shouldn't, because I should just wait until we get the resolution or whatever's going to happen.
Episode, yeah,
and then I'll have to pay for HBO Max to watch it. So
it is very good. I do like the slow burn villain they set up for this season.
Okay,
he's really cool.
Okay, all right. Well, it's on my list of things to get to, so I'll include it in my my DC Universe pre-death binge that I'm powering through at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, we forgot about the biggest news that I texted you about. There's another streaming platform that just emerged this week.
Fucking hell! You texted me about this?
I did, because it is exactly what we pitched
a
few months
that's
before.
Right.
And it is such a wonderful idea, and I'm glad that we thought of it first. But the wonderful man that is Ryan Reynolds opened his own streaming service that only has one film.
It's Foolproof.
Yes.
2003's Foolproof, which I don't know anything about.
Exactly, and that's the best part about it. Now we can get the service and watch this movie.
I mean, if someone was going to do it, we should have known it would have been Ryan Reynolds.
Yes, and it's so fun. And what I hope comes from this is I hope that Hugh Jackman starts his own streaming service to rival it. But it should be sponsored by Ryan Reynolds' vodka.
Oh, yeah, Aviation Vodka?
Yeah.
I mean, how can you not remember this 2003 90-minute classic action comedy starring Ryan Reynolds, Kristen Booth, Joris Jarski, and Sean Sullivan? How can you not remember
They got
this?
Sean Sullivan in that?
It's an amazing get. I don't look. I've heard of most movies, even if I haven't seen them. I don't think I've ever heard of this.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Kevin, Sam, and Rob are founding members of a theoretical group which pulls off heists. Leo, a gangster, blackmails them into pulling off a real $1 million heist. Now it's up to them to get out alive. I'm not sure what a theoretical group of thieves is necessarily, but apparently
I'm hoping it's just
done as a movie.
I'm hoping it's just mistyped and it's supposed to be a theatrical group, and it's just a bunch of like improvisers who pull off improvised heists, but now they have to pull off a real heist.
Look, I think that's probably more likely that IMDb has a typo, but I also just really want to know now what a theoretical group would be. Like, they just sit there and like ponder and postulate what a heist could be.
Well, I mean, it could be like a mastermind group. So my mom is part of this, what I call like the supervillain group, where it's just like a bunch of people who have a lot of money, and they just come around and like share their ideas about how to make more money.
Yeah, it's like an Illuminati sort of thing.
It is very much like an Illuminati sort of thing, but you pay a lot of money to get in, which is probably what you do for the Illuminati.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah, that shit ain't free. I mean, if there was anyone on the planet who would be part of a fake Illuminati, it is Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
So this all makes sense.
If anyone was to start their own Illuminati,
that's true.
sponsored by Aviation Vodka.
I'd join. Why not?
Yeah, I'd see what's going on.
If someone's going to start a cult that I would actually join, it would be Ryan Reynolds.
Mm-hmm. So. Because that means Hugh Jackman is going to start a rival cult.
Yes. Yes, and I want the two of them to vie for my affection. Yes. Just me personally.
With just Blake Lively in the corner just shaking her head.
Yeah. I mean, look, if she's just dressed in like a fabulous Marlena Dietrich inspired suit, I'm there for it. So, I'm 100% there for it. All right, well, should we move on to some Static Shock here?
Let's talk about some static. Let's get all wet and wild over here.
All right, yeah, our first episode up is Wet and Wild, which is a potential bang baby cure has been created by Dr. Todd. Very great name. Aqua Maria offers to be a test subject, but the procedure is sabotaged by Hot Streak.
I don't know if I would say she offered to be a test subject. I think she was kind of coerced to be a test subject.
She's kind of coerced, kind of volunteers. At the end of the day, she basically volunteers for it. But the problem is that Hot Streak sabotages the cure procedure, and Maria's left molecularly unstable. And so Static and Gear are able to stop her from destroying the city, and eventually she's able to finish the procedure and get cured. So obviously this is a huge episode because it introduces a bang baby cure. Mm-hmm. I overall, though, didn't really love this episode, but you enjoyed it. So I want to know why you enjoyed it.
I'm gonna get this out right now and be very upfront about this. Butch Hartman.
Is there an episode of Danny Phantom?
One episode of H2 Olga. The one episode is this exact plot. Not the Bang Baby Cure plot, but it's her gets more powerful the bigger source of water she gets close to.
Jesus Christ.
And it is the Crimson Chin and Clef the Boy Chin Wonder trying to stop her from getting to the lake where she will, be able to get to the ocean and be all powerful. That is the one episode of H2 Olga. There's only one. As much as I bring her up, there's only one episode she appears in. It is identical to what this episode is.
We've actively tried to avoid slandering Butch Hartman by claiming he just ripped off stuff. We've always tiptoed around it, but to quote Goldfinger, at this point, once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, and third time is enemy action. This has happened far too often now at this point. Clearly, Butch Hartman ripped off Static Shock.
Yeah. I
don't care if he's going to come after us and start throwing Bibles at us. I'm standing by this assessment.
As long as he signs one of them, I'll be fine with it.
That's fine. Yeah. No, he'll charge you $200 to draw a little cartoon
true.
in it, and then he'll throw it at you.
That is true. Yeah, and I know that's only like the C plot of this episode, but I like when they said like we have to stop her from getting to Lake Dakota. I'm like, you're shitting me. This can't be what's going on.
God.
I think there's even I don't know if I'm just mixing the two episodes now, but there's that shot where Aqua Maria is like a wave and you see her face in the wave.
Yeah.
I think that exact shot is done as H2 Olga.
Now, hang on. I do have to say that this episode... Okay, wait. So it premiered in Australia. I'm not talking about the Fairly Odd Parents episode.
Yeah,
It premiered in
Wet n
Australia November 8th, 2002, but it premiered in the US in 2003. Okay, but it was produced in 2002. And if I'm getting this right, Wet n Wild came out in 2004. So actually, we have it backwards. This ripped off Butch Hartman. I immediately retract all the statements that I
me too.
very. You know what I said, that I stand by something? I immediately retract it within minutes.
I am shocked by this.
Yeah, now it's totally possible. Other things were ripped off by Butch Hartman, but in this case, no, they ripped off Fairly Odd Parents.
Wow. I wonder if Dwayne McDuffie and Butch Hartman were friends. They must have worked on something together.
Maybe.
Being,
I don't know.
Two big names in the industry back in the day.
Either that or Len Yulee, who wrote this episode of Static Shock, happened to be in Australia in 2002 and was like, oh, hey, we could do this. Okay, boy, so...
That's so funny. Oh, my gosh. My whole world just flipped upside down.
I know, right? Okay, so outside of the painful similarity in plot between these two episodes, you liked this episode.
I did like this episode.
Can you please explain to me why?
I like Aqua Maria, and I really like her new design.
Okay.
Because it feels very like Ink predecessor.
Sure, yeah.
Which I think is cool. I like her. I think they could have like pulled a little more emotion out of her. But like Static using like, hey, like you can see your family again if you take this cure.
Yeah.
And like really pulling at those strings. And at this point, she's very emotional and isolated. Like her partner, Hotstreak, has just abandoned her. The one line of backstory we got from Hotstreak comes back in this episode, and I even wrote, I'm like, oh right, because he doesn't like doctors. That's why he's so against Maria getting the surgery.
Oh, is that a thing? Oh, I forgot about that.
Right, he doesn't like doctors. Remember the one line of backstory we got about Hotstreak?
I thought it just because he was super lonely and didn't want to lose his homegirl, as he calls her. No, not girlfriend.
Homegirl. Yeah. I mean, it's probably a mixture of the two, but it came back, Chris. It came back. It came
back. It was absolutely intended and not just purely coincidental.
Yeah.
But even what you just talked about, the idea about Aqua Maria wanting to be back with her family, like that's barely touched upon.
I know, and I think it should have been touched upon more. I think a lot of this episode could have been subverted because her like going around and kidnapping these doctors. I think these doctors would be very willing to just do the test again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they're under the idea of like, oh, the scientific method is try it once, didn't work, abandon everything, never do it again.
Leave chaotic failed experiment to destroy the city. My problem with this episode is that it should be really, really important. Like we're going to have to include this on our short list because it is like canonically critical. It introduces a cure. Mm-hmm. But nothing else about this episode is really particularly interesting. Like, and you feel like they were just grabbing at whatever random things they could to fill out the episode rather than filling it with anything sort of interesting or meaningful. Like, there is a whole episode to be made out of Aqua Maria and Hotstreak being like not only partners in crime, but also romantic partners. Like there's a whole like villain focused episode about how that dynamic is really challenging and how like they're both desperate and lonely and looking for companionship, and they've kind of picked the wrong people, but they don't have any other options because they're both bang babies. There's a whole thing to be done there.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I think you could even play up more of the family aspect there, where Hot Streak's always been a loner. We've known that since episode 1.
Yeah.
But he knows Aqua Maria is desperate for companionship because her family has abandoned her. So he's exploiting that by kind of constantly being on the, like, if you don't do this for me, I'm going to leave you. And, you know, being that very gaslighty, you know, male presence or familial presence.
Yeah. I mean, I love that he attempts to gaslight her, and he can't because he's an idiot.
Yeah. He doesn't like doctors, Chris. He doesn't like doctors.
The most important thing about Hutch's
back.
character, he came back around. But it's like, to me, like, that felt shoehorned in to pad out time. Lest we forget, this episode opens with Daisy, Virgil, and Richie visiting this musician Candide at a record store just so they could squeeze in a Bernie Rass cameo. I thought Candide was a real person. It's not.
No, yeah, I forgot about that. Because I also forgot, this is the first time, I think since season 2, we've seen Daisy without Frida.
Oh my God. The universe is breaking.
Yeah.
That's why they had to cancel the show.
It couldn't be done.
But it's like, you know, why have that scene in there? They have a whole, they have that scene. They introduce the idea that Daisy's part of the swim team. I think just so they can have Aqua Maria attack a pool later on. But like, they have a whole scene at the swim meet, and you expect, like, oh, maybe, you know, Daisy or someone's going to get put in danger, but really nothing happens. Like, so because I actually,
the doctor's daughter is also on the swim team.
Right. Like, so slight peek behind the curtain here. I actually ended up watching this week's episodes twice. I watched them last week, and then we ended up having to reschedule our episode the last minute. I watched them again last night, not paying super close attention, to be perfectly honest. But even having watched this episode twice in the span of 1 week, I have forgotten most of it because most of it is entirely forgettable.
I do think it could have been stronger, but I did like it a lot because it felt very similar to what we loved about the old BTOS episodes, where it is a villain plot going on that has nothing to do with Static, that Static just has to interject himself into.
I mean, I would agree with that, except for the cure element. Mm-hmm. Because when you introduce the cure element, now this is something that does affect Static, even to the point of them realizing that he's necessary for the cure to work. Like, because initially they were like running a low level current through Aqua Maria to allow the cure to take into effect, and then Gear just like takes a glance at it and goes, oh, no, wait, actually, instead of electrifying the patient, which is a terrible thing to do, you just have to electrify the compound, which I think scientifically makes no sense, and all of a sudden it works. So, because I do agree with you, if this were just an episode about Aqua Maria being separated from her family and like kind of having seemingly from her perspective no choice but to partner up with Hot Streak, the only person who kind of wants to give her the time of day and to be there for her, then it would have been kind of like a throwback BTOS episode. But if you introduce the cure, all of a sudden now Static is very, very deeply connected to what's happening in this episode, and that's a huge thing to introduce, and I thought that the rest of the episode around it really let down the cure element.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I was thinking about it a little bit more. There's nothing about this that specifically connects to Aqua Maria.
No.
And I feel like besides the, you know, water and the aspect where they stole from Vote Harley, heavily influenced by Vote Harley.
We would never say that anyone ripped off anything ever, and then really, really staunchly stand behind it. We're better than that. We've learned from our mistakes.
Yes. I feel like this entire episode could have also been Talon and Ebon.
Yeah, totally could have been.
Or any meta that had like a physical change, because like it's that similar thing where I feel like there could have been a fight between Aqua Maria and Hot Streak, where, you know, she has the argument of like, you can walk around like you are normal. You can still walk around. You can still be part of society. You can still blend in. I lost that opportunity. I need this cure. You know, it's the whole like Mystique Magneto situation again.
Yeah. Although to be fair, Hot Streak can't blend in because of his hair.
That's true.
Yeah. And there's no way he's changing that hairstyle.
Physics defying pants.
Exactly. His secondary power.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. Like, you could have done this exact same plot and had it been anybody else. And I actually have some thoughts on how to fix it, but that's going to have to wait because I would actually make this episode and the next episode, Cameron, wait for it, a two-parter.
Oh, shit. I'm on board. Immediate take my money. I'm on board. How much do you need to produce this?
But before I get into pitching my two-parter replacement for these,
because I also agree the next one should be 2 parts.
Yes, there are a couple little things that I did like about this episode I found amusing. One is when Daisy asked if Virgil and Richie are going to the swim meet. Richard's response is, "Oh my God, yeah, how could I not go and miss out on 20 girls in swimsuits?" I'm like, okay, this is closeted Richie trying really, really hard to prove that he's straight.
Yep.
Even to the point of bringing binoculars to the swim meet. Calm down, Richie. It's fine. You don't have to try so hard. So like that little element I did enjoy. And I thought you would appreciate that Richie finally created a more effective way to subdue the villains.
He did, and I'm very proud of him. And he tries to use the same one again in the next episode. For some reason, he thinks that's going to work on Static.
He just never learns. He never learns.
There was also a weird moment in this, and I don't know if you caught this, but they just used the Nighthawks painting, the famous painting of that like bar corner.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
Google it, Nighthawks by Edward Harper.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking. Oh, yeah, the people in the cafe at night.
Yeah, because that's where Hot Streak is watching the news report. And I'm like, wow, they just straight up used a famous painting in their episode. That's awesome.
Oh, but I mean, but also to be fair, Nighthawks is one of the most frequently parodied.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And homage paintings of all time. Like I'm just scrolling through Google image search on it, and I see a Simpsons one, I see a Star Wars one. I think there's one here of maybe Banksy did it, but it's Nighthawks, but there's a bear throwing lawn chairs at the windows. That's an interesting take. Yeah, but I missed that, but I should have known. Oh, there's a Lego one. Oh, oh.
I'm trying to see because I know a lot of people do parody paintings of it, but I'm trying to see if anyone else has used it in their episodes.
I mean, Simpsons. I'm pretty sure this is actually.
I know. Yeah, I think
episode.
Simpsons did.
Well, because Simpsons has done everything at this point.
Simpsons did it.
Simpsons did it.
Yeah, The Simpsons. I see that one. Fresh Off the Boat used it apparently. Okay, we'll continue this conversation later.
We'll do a bonus episode on all of the Nighthawk.
I would love to do a bonus episode on just Nighthawks.
Homages throughout history. I don't know. Like, 'cause I do have a lot to say about the next episode, so not to rush through this one. But do you have any other thoughts on this guy?
Well, how would you do the 2-part? Oh, so would your 2-part be the first part is dealing with Aquamaria's character, and part 2 be dealing with the cure?
So yeah, I will pitch my 2-parter, but I'm gonna do that after we've talked about Kidnapped. Kidnapped first.
Sure.
So all right, so because I know Cameron, you're itching here. You heard the word 2-parter, now you can't control yourself.
I gotta know.
Tell me more. So let's move on to Kidnapped. Which sees Edwin Alva. We learn that he's recruited down the line Dr. Karen Roberts to discover Static's secret identity. But since he and Static are now cool, Alva fires her. So she uses her massive network of surveillance to discover Virgil's secret identity and kidnaps Pops in order to blackmail Static into stealing back from Alva her life's work, a machine that can control every electronic device on Earth.
And give her a cool ones and zeros force field.
Yes. The effect when she finally puts on her helmet is some sort of weird combination of the Riddler's technology from Batman Forever and then Cerebro.
Yeah, I definitely put Cerebro in here as their visual inspiration.
Yeah, it looks just like the Cerebro helmet. But okay, so there are some cool aspects of this episode. I think it's really interesting, the idea of introducing, it's an interesting idea to have Pops learn Virgil's identity.
Yeah.
That's a huge moment. And I think they handle that specific element really well. Like even that initial conversation where Pop says, you can drop the act, Virgil, I figured it out. And you can tell that he's really struggling over the course of the episode with how to approach this. What's the right thing to do? Because, on one hand, his son is going out there to actually help people and make the city a better place. I mean, in his own way, he's following in Pop's footsteps in terms of what he does at the community center. He's doing what his mom did in terms of trying to, help the city and be a hero. Like, it's a really like an inspirational thing. You could see that Pops is proud of Virgil for doing that. But at the same time, he and his best friend are out there, risking their lives every day. And that is a hard thing to condone. And I liked his reaction, and I also liked his ultimate logic there of being like, you got these powers for a reason. I'm not going to stop you. I thought that part of it they did really well. I mean, what did you think about the whole Pop's secret identity thing?
I loved it. I think they handled it very well. I think my favorite bit of it was the ending button. I think was so probably the funniest end of an episode, because as Pops is giving his nice speech, he says, we also have to tell Sharon now. And they go, and Sharon is throwing a fit over her insurance company now demanding Bang Baby insurance.
Yeah.
And her saying, like, if I just hear Bang Baby one more time, I'm gonna lose my shit. And Pop's kind of like glancing at the two of them, and she goes, okay, what do you guys want to say? He goes, nothing.
You're right. I think it's the only time I've ever seen Pops shut down.
Yeah. I loved that little button. And it's such a good like parent moment of like, we're gonna save this for another time.
We're just gonna scoot past this. Like the one thing is, I wish we had more time in the series with Pops knowing.
Yeah, we would have one episode left.
Yeah,
and I don't remember in the next episode if he even references knowing.
I did watch the finale last week too. I didn't rewatch it this week. They do play up mostly for comedic effect a little bit of him knowing the truth, but there's not a lot there necessarily, but it is referenced. It does build off of this. Like these 3 episodes do build off of each other, leading through the finale. But yeah, I wanted more time with it.
Yeah.
Like I wanted it's. I can also see it's hard to figure out what more to do. Now, okay, remind us, you being the Butch Hartman, Danny Phantom expert that you are, what happened after Jazz found out Danny was... Wait, what is Danny Phantom's superhero name that everyone calls him? Ghost Boy?
Yeah, I guess Ghost Boy, and then a lot of people call him Danny Phantom.
But wouldn't they then know that he's Danny Fenton? Because he looks just like him and has almost the exact same name?
Nope.
Okay, great. Okay, so...
Because Danny Phantom is cool, and Danny Fenton is not.
So what happens when Jazz discovers that her brother, Danny Fenton, is in reality the identical-looking superhero Danny Phantom?
They're not identical. Danny Fenton has black hair, and Danny Phantom has white hair.
I'm so sorry. I'm so
Chris?
sorry. Wait, actually, hang on. I do have a tangent on that. Have you ever heard the theory that the whole story of Danny Phantom is a trans allegory?
I have not.
Yeah, this was pointed out to me recently. I'm pretty sure by Kira, friend of the show and former guest. And I actually did like a brief little bit of research on it to see if there's anything there. There's actually a lot of theories behind it. If you look at the design of Danny when he's in his normal kid mode, actually kind of has more...
Say Phantom mode.
Yeah, there we go. When he's Fenton, he has more kind of like feminine body types a little bit, like narrower shoulders, wider hips. One episode references that when they all go to like a big community pool, like all the guys are not wearing a shirt, including Tucker, but he's wearing like a wife beater over it. And then when he's Danny Phantom, wider shoulders, narrower hips, and like more distinct masculine features.
Interesting. No, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I'd never heard that either. And like, I didn't see anything that like corroborated that on the parts of the creatives, but I don't know, it's an interesting theory. But anyways, that tangent aside. So what happened when Jazz discovered the secret identity? Like, because they played that out for a while, right? It was like a whole season they had at least. I think, playing with that idea?
She found out pretty. I think she found out in season 1.
Oh, okay.
No, she joined the team.
Okay.
When she finds out, I guess she finds out before joining the team, before they know she knows.
Okay.
And so there's a couple episodes where she like acts like she doesn't know and gives them a chance to kind of do their thing. So like there'll be a time when I think they're like on a family vacation and the parents run off and there's a ghost around and Danny's like trying to find an excuse to get away from Jazz, and Jazz will just be like, "Oh, I think I heard a sound over behind this tree. I'm going to go check it out." And like giving Danny the chance to like turn into Danny Phantom.
Yeah. To go ghost.
Yeah. And so for a while she did that, and then she did tell the others that she knew and she wants to join Team Ghost. And then there was an episode where the first time she's part of the team where she kind of takes over and tries to be the leader because at being the older sister, she thinks she knows how this works. Mm-hmm. But in actuality, she's just constantly getting in the way because these three have been doing this ghost hunting business for, a year now.
Right.
So it was them trying to find a balance between them of like, here's what you can do. Here's how we do it. Here's how you can fit into the group. Okay.
So I can see how a similar sort of molds, running with the theory that there's a lot of creative collaboration between between Static and Butch Hartman. But I can see how
they
that
like shared a wall in one of the studios and they just like overheard each other's conversations.
Maybe Dwayne McDuffie and Butch Hartman were like neighbors, and they had a lovely like Home Improvement style like Wilson Timm relationship over the fence, and they just like stand there and just throw ideas back and forth. Who knows?
Well, because what was in when they worked on Dexter's lab, it was there were 4 guys that shared a cubicle, and it was Seth MacFarlane, Butch Hartman, Craig McCracken, and Tom, the guy who created Kids Next Door, Tom.
You would
Walterson, whatever his name is.
Okay, you would know more than I would.
The 4 of them all shared the same cubicle space.
Oh my god, that's
and
amazing!
I'm like, fuck off with that. That's not fair.
Cameron, I feel like if you had one wish, you would wish to be a fly on that wall, even if it meant you only got to live for 24 hours.
I would wish to be like a PA for them.
Would you though? Have you ever been a PA?
I've
like
not.
A proper PA? Yeah.
But I feel like a PA for animation is different.
Maybe. Who knows? But also, this was like almost 20 years ago. I imagine things were probably worse.
Yeah.
Okay, so I could see how they couldn't use a similar story arc here because obviously, like, Pops is not going to join the team, right? Like, but I feel like they maybe could have gotten a little bit more runway out of this.
Okay, can I pitch you how I think this episode should have gone? Because I think it'll lead into what you're thinking for this.
Yes, okay.
I think we scrap the former team up episode where Static has to work with Hot Streak and to make this be some sort of like Static Suicide Squad situation.
Okay.
Where Pops is kidnapped. Pops, who most of the community knows already.
Yeah.
Because he is in charge of the community center. And Static has to work with the other villain Bang Babies to get him back. Because basically like, hey, this is the one guy that's always stood up for you. He's always had your back. You've always had a chance to talk with him, and he's never judged you for anything you've done. This is the man that supports us, and he needs your help right now.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And I think that could have been such a cool, especially, for your, not Hot Streak, because fuck him, not Ebon, but for your Shiv, your Talon, your Kangor, the ones that we cameoed, Carmen Dillo.
Yeah.
People that can still be sympathetic. And like, you're right, this guy, I didn't listen to him, and that's kind of why I'm in this situation. Like, he was the one that had my back. And like, I owe it to him to go and save him.
No, that would have been a cool idea to introduce, actually, because I think that would have been something really meaningful to happen here. Because I kind of like with Wet and Wild's, you have this really huge element you introduce to the world that Pops discovers his identity, but the rest of the episode around it isn't great. Like, so Dr. Roberts like gets pissed off that Alva fires her, and so she creates this, was it Omnia or something like that? Like, it's really terrible villain persona.
Omnera, whatever.
Omnera.
Something like that.
Yeah, and her whole thing doesn't make sense. So one of my big issues with this episode, before I get into kind of how I would redo it, is this episode has two universe-breaking pieces of technology in it. One of them is a worldwide surveillance system that, as she puts it, is connected to like every single like camera, phone, television, whatever across the entire world. Like, it is like the ultimate surveillance and manipulation tool to ever be created. And she builds it just so she can discover Static's identity. Now, that same piece of technology could be used to do pretty much anything on the planet. You could find out any piece of information you want, blackmail anyone you want. It is a huge thing, and it's skirted past because they somehow were able to one-up the stakes and have her life's work, instead of being an impossible surveillance network that no one could really build, she creates a device that allows her to control every electronic device on the planet. Mm-hmm. The only thing more absurd than a worldwide surveillance net.
And but it's okay because Richie made a counter virus.
He made a counter virus.
So it's okay.
It's totally fine. And of course, it fries her brain, so she can't tell anyone that Static's identity is. It just really bothered me. The lack of follow through on these ideas, right? It's like, that is, like I said, it's a universe breaking piece of technology. Like, you could build an entire episode around a technology like that. Hell, Westworld has built like an entire show around like the power of like surreptitious and ubiquitous surveillance. And for them to just like casually introduce it and then toss it aside was just like fucking baffling to me. It's like, this is a world that has superheroes, and all you care about is finding Static's secret identity. You don't want to know maybe, I don't know, Batman's secret identity?
Everyone's secret identity?
Wonder Woman's, Superman's?
to they just
pick anyone else. Yeah,
they wouldn't believe it. You see him just like, he takes his little hair curl and he just pushes it back up.
Yeah,
she goes, "Who is this guy?
Where did he go? Where did Superman go?" God damn it.
So taking a half step back really quick to talk about how you fit in Pops to this kind of superhero system. If we go off this idea that all the villains have been through the community center at one point, you basically play it where Pops knows the backstory to all the villains now. And Static, there's a moment where Static kind of like gets aggressive with one of the villains, and Pops has to step in and like, hey, like, she's still a person.
Yeah.
Like, this is the shit that she's dealing with back home. This is why she is like this. Try talking to her. He becomes kind of this voice of this overarching voice of reason for Static. Mm-hmm. Which I think, saying that out loud, it does kind of put Static in a worse spot, because then
a little bit.
It's not his own sympathy that's stopping him.
But there is an interesting idea, though, about Pops being someone who's been trying to help the Bang Babies, even though he doesn't have powers the way Static does. Mm-hmm. And so, I kind of want to I like that idea. I want to kind of incorporate into what my original two-parter pitch was.
Please show your two parts.
Yes,
I'll figure out a way to make it a third part.
There you go. Yeah, we'll make it a full epic. So, because the idea of introducing a cure is huge, and part of the reason I did watch the finale was I wanted to see how they handled it, and they touched on some of these ideas, but I think you could still do something with a lot of this. So the way I would do it is you still have Dr. Todd create a cure, right? But he discovers through like trial and error, and maybe it is like trial and error on Aqua Maria, like have her actually volunteer to undergo this because she does miss her family and she wants to get back to them. So have her volunteer for it. The thing goes wrong and she's left in this like molecularly damaged state, right? So she runs off. then you have the knowledge of the cure get back to Static and to Gear, and now they're put in this position of wondering, like, how do we feel about this? And I think you also have to incorporate then the idea that, like, jump back again and talk about the cost of being heroes for them, right? Like the fact that, they don't get to hang out with Daisy and Frida, that, he's never around to spend time with Pops or Sharon, that it has a toll on their lives. And also the idea that, being a bang baby for both the heroes and the villains, you can use Aquamarine as an example, takes a toll on their relationships in particular. And so that, though Static and Gear want to keep being who they are and keep being heroes, there's a price to it. But the flip side, Aquamarine doesn't want to be a bang baby anymore. So you set up that, that idea that a cure is a curse for some and a blessing for others. And then while Aquamarine is trying to figure out to solve her problem, we see that because she's now like basically combined with water, she's like able to like just sneak around and like kind of hide and play at sight. So she's spying on Dr. Todd, and she overhears them say that, the only person who might be able to actually make the cure work is Static. So then she goes off and she basically decides she's going to kidnap Static. But while she's there, she realizes who he is. And so she decides instead she's going to kidnap Pops. Like maybe Static flies off or whatever, and the person she can kidnap is Pops. And then all of a sudden, Aquamarine has kidnapped Pops and is basically blackmailing Virgil to force him to make the cure work. And I think that puts him in that sort of moral dilemma of like, do I make this happen or not? Like him saving Pops potentially also means having to get being Static, not only because he doesn't know whether Pops is going to keep supporting him or not, but also because he's literally allowing a cure to happen. And so he runs the possibility of losing everything in order to help his dad, but he obviously has to do it. And then I think you could still, maybe incorporate your idea about him needing help to get the bang babies, or maybe this even just becomes like, I said two-parter, but maybe actually in hindsight, it could easily just be like a one-episode thing that has both elements introduced at the same time. And you can still have Aquamarine be like, the villain they have to stop in the end, and Static has to come up with the cure, and you still have a lot of the same like background buttons and stuff like that. But I think you needed to give those two elements, the cure and Pops discovering the identity, more dramatic and plot weight, and skip a lot of this unnecessary other crap that's thrown in.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Because I also, as I've established, I hate everything about like Omnia's technology, Omniara's technology so much that I want to excise completely from these episodes.
I think if you're going that route, and this might be playing a little too much into the finale, I think you have a third party in there. You have the villains that want to turn back. You have the heroes that want to stay, but you still have that party of the villains that want to stay villains. You have your Ebons, your hot streaks that like, I now have real power. Why would I ever want to give this up?
Yeah, and that is the thrust of the finale.
Yeah,
is especially those two, is Ebon and hot streak. But yeah, I mean, you the thing is like they're working towards a finale here. Pop's learning the secret, the cure. You could still have an episode or two that dived into this stuff more and still leave plenty of room.
I would want like 4 more episodes between here and the finale.
Okay.
Because I want a Sharon wrap up. I don't know if she ever learns what's going on, but like maybe Pops passes off the community center to her. Mm-hmm. Have some kind of ending to her story. Something with Rubber Band Man, maybe.
Oh, Rubber Band Man.
Where like he, have an episode where he's trying to propose, and maybe that's when he learns Static is Virgil. I think if Rubber Band Man knows, that's a cool way to wrap that up. Mm-hmm. Give him some justice for a finale. Or Sharon won't marry him until he takes the cure.
That could be interesting.
That could be super interesting.
Yeah, like there is so much story to mine out of one of his family members discovering his identity, out of a cure existing, and the dynamic as it plays out. And there's so many supporting characters over the course of the show that are kind of left hanging. And we'll get into a little bit more next week, but also Static ends up becoming kind of the only show so far in the DCAU that actually gets a proper finale. I mean, I guess Zeta basically did too, but we ignore Zeta as much as possible. Like BTOS never got a proper finale, nor did the new Batman Adventures. The ending of Superman was kind of more setting, like it was kind of a finale, but was really more kind of setting up a new plot thread that didn't get picked up till much later. Even Batman Beyond, there's like, it's kind of a finale, and the idea of like, oh, here's the reason why I'll never be able to tell Dana my secret, which we eventually learn he does anyways.
Yeah.
But like, we haven't really had finales, and at least this show gives us one. But I think they could do more with it.
I agree.
Yeah, but we'll get to it next week. I don't know. Is there anything else in this episode that you thought was kind of interesting?
There's one other thing that really frustrated me, and it's when Static and Gear are fighting.
Oh my God.
And there's like a surveillance thing, so I understand that like he can't give any visual clues, because we know he can like write stuff in electricity. Like he makes that web at one point where he like leaves a clue. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think these are two nerds. Have a nerd metaphor to like explain to Richie what's going on. Be like, hey, we have a Skywalker going on right now. Like, we have a Lois Lane situation. Like, have something where like it's obvious to those two, but she wouldn't get it. Where Richie, because like he does in the end leave the clue of like, you're a worm. Look at
you're a worm. You're such a worm.
Yeah. Have something else in there where Richie knows to like pull his punches and Static knows to pull his punches.
Yeah.
And I think like calling it like a Lois Lane situation is because we've had that joke before. So we know like that is an in joke already between them.
Yeah. The damsel in distress.
And yeah, I was trying to think of like what other nerd references could they use. And so I have a Skywalker situation, a Lois Lane situation. We got a Karate Kid 2 going on here.
Man, you got some deep cuts there. Were you just upset this episode wasn't nerdy enough, Cameron?
Always. I'm always upset. I rewatched Scott Pilgrim this week for its 10th anniversary. And after that, I want more nerd references and everything.
All the time.
That movie is so good.
I know. I'm going to cut you off before you spend an hour talking about Scott Pilgrim. But no, I agree with you. Like, I totally get why they wanted to have that moment of like the two of them fighting, because they haven't really done that yet. And I'm sure it was great for the promos of like, oh my God, this week on Static Shock, it's Static versus Gear. But it definitely felt weak. And it just, I get it's like justified because at the end, Static like, gives him the worm clue to tip him off as to what's going on, that, Omnara has sent this virus out into the world that's going to destroy everything. But it felt really forced in the moment, and the justification in the end didn't feel like enough to really make the whole thing land.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of wanted them to actually have a battle over ideology, not over, like, forced circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, no, I agree. If we have any listeners out there that have the skill to write a comic and illustrate a comic for us, we have about 3 issues. Yes. We want to fill between these two. Watchtower guys, I know you have connections.
Yeah, no. As part of the the legacy comics they do, we'll do a collaboration. We'll have them do Static Shock: The Missing Episodes.
Yeah, give us real wrap up. I have such a soft spot for Talon, and I don't know why, but I feel like she deserves justice.
I think you think she deserves justice because we've seen her every episode in the intro get captured by Richie's stupid cable system, that you just feel like she deserves more than that.
She does.
She really does, though. I like Talon. She's
and
fantastic.
like Onyx and Puff. Like, I feel like Puff is also kind of mean, but she also deserves like some justice.
I mean, that was one of the kind of fun things about this episode, is as Static is trying to find his dad, he's out there interrogating all the Bang Babies. So we get cameos from Puff and Onyx, Carmandillo, a.k.a. Armadillon,
Kangor,
Shiv. Yeah, like, I liked that they brought those characters
and I think
back.
That's the only time... Do they make an appearance in the finale?
Some of them do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, this is our first time seeing a lot of them in their rework.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
We haven't seen Shiv in the past 2 seasons. We haven't seen Kangor since season 2.
Yeah, what a shame. Those are great characters.
I know
their design doesn't change too much.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I mean, I am very excited for us to talk about the finale next week, because I feel like, especially the last 2 seasons of Static, my big frustration has been the potential hasn't always lived up to what I thought it would be. And so I'd be very excited to talk about like the finale and how we feel about how that lands. So, but until then, shall we move along to some bat plugs here?
Let's do some bat plugs.
All right. So Cameron, what do you got to plug this week?
I believe you really enjoyed this movie, and it's been long awaited on my list, but I finally watched Stardust.
Oh, I liked it. It was fine.
Oh, okay. I for some reason I thought there was a lot more emotional connection for people with Stardust. Because I also thought it was just fine. Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, like I've had the book on my shelf for years, and I think earlier this year I finally sat down to read it. And I didn't really like it very much. I think we've talked about this before, that I may have come to the conclusion that I'm maybe not, Neil Gaiman may just not be my kind of author, sadly. But I thought the book didn't really work for me, and I liked the movie more. It was a little more fun, a little more swashbuckling. But I think if maybe we had seen it when it came out, we would have had a greater appreciation for it. But I think now it just feels kind of fine. I mean, the best thing about it is like the insanely stacked cast of people that all became famous down the line.
It has a very like Princess Bride feel to it, which I think a lot of people connect it. I didn't realize that it's just Wacko's Wish.
Wait, is it?
Pretty much.
I don't think I've actually ever seen all of Wacko's Wish. Tragically.
It's great. Highly recommend. Like top 10 Christmas movies.
Okay.
But yeah, I thought it was just fine. I was a little underwhelmed, and because like a lot of people talk about is like, oh, it's Daredevil fighting Superman, and I'm like, oh shit, that's awesome, and then you only see Henry Cavill for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and it's more just them like pining over the same girl.
Yeah,
it's not like they really even like get into fisticuffs or anything.
But yeah, there's that, and then I started playing a new game called Fall Guys. Have you heard of that yet?
I feel like I've seen something on the internet about it, but I don't know what it's about.
It's very fun.
Okay.
And it's a great like group game. And so do you have a PS4, don't you?
No, I need to get one because I hate my Xbox.
Okay.
I hate it so much, and I really want to play Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, I have Spider-Man for you. So the idea is it is a obstacle course battle royale. So it's kind of like a Wipeout video game with cartoon physics. You're playing this cute little avatar, and you start off with 60 people in your game. And every kind of obstacle course you get through, they only let in like 40 people make it through round 1, 20 people make it through round 2, 15 people make it through round 3, and then it gets to last person standing wins.
This sounds like the most you thing
it's
ever.
So cute.
Created.
And it's so much fun.
Actually, Cameron, this makes me think that it's totally possible that Omnara's surveillance technology exists, and someone has used it for the sole purpose of surveying you to figure out what the perfect game for Cameron would be, and then go and make it.
So here's the problem with this, though, is I'm so bad at the game.
Also, I hate to say it, Cameron, that also feels like you.
Yeah, I continuously forget that, like, while I have this unnecessary wealth of knowledge on gaming culture and gaming history, I'm a very bad gamer.
It also feels very on brand that someone would create your perfect game and then you would not be good at it.
Yeah.
Wait, but so is it online co-op?
It is, yeah.
How's the online co-op element? Like, that's what actually has made me play fewer video games over the years. I hate playing games online. Like, do they do that aspect well?
I mean, you can only play it online. There is no single player. There is no like private party. I hope they add that, because I would love if I could just play with my like 8 nerd friends.
Yeah, I hate playing games online with strangers.
It is nice because it is kind of younger. It is kind of a younger game, so there's no voice chat,
Oh, thank
and
God.
there's no real interaction between you and the players, except the only way to be toxic in the game is you can grab players for 2 seconds. You only have 3 buttons. You can jump, dive, and grab. And there are moments where, like, one of the games is there's these spinning wheels, and you have to kind of move from wheel to wheel as obstacles come by. And you'll have people like holding you on one wheel as you're trying to get to the next one, about to fall into a pit.
Mm-hmm.
And like usually no one is like skilled enough or mean enough to like actually make you drop, but it's just
Okay.
like adds that a little bit of pressure and that little bit of frustration of like, just like get out of my way.
Yeah, that does sound really fun, but I just can't play games online.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't need some 12-year-old calling me gay. They're right.
They are right. No, I mean,
They're
there's no
right.
voice
To be
chat.
fair.
You can't talk to anyone.
It doesn't matter, Cameron.
I know what they're saying.
I know what they're saying.
Yeah. And I think that's why I enjoyed it, is there's no voice chat and there's no like text chat either.
Oh, thank
It's
God.
just you in the game, baby.
Old school.
Yeah. But yeah, those are my plugs. What have you been watching, listening, reading?
So I, as I mentioned, have been trying to do a binge of as much DC Universe content as I possibly can. And so over the last couple months, I have been reading all of the Harley Quinn comics on there, written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor. I'm actually reading that for a project that you'll hear a more official announcement about down the line, probably in a few months.
Ooh.
Yes, a little tease right there. But essentially, it was for research, but also I was wanting to read those comics, and I've heard they're really good, and I read them, and they are really, really good. Like, you and I both didn't love Birds of Prey, if I recall.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more
Okay.
than you did.
That's true. My reason was that I didn't really like it is, like, to me, that character, their version of Harley didn't feel familiar to me, because I mostly know her from the DCAU and then from like the Arkham games and a little bit of comics here and there. But like I really know her from the Bruce Timm Paul Dini era. And what I had neglected to factor in was that, you know, Jimmy and Amanda took that character in an entirely different direction when they took over on that title with the New 52. And they basically created the version of Harley that we now see everywhere. It's like the Harley that was in Birds of Prey, the Harley especially that's in the animated series, which we both love. Like that version of that character really started with those comics. And they're really fun. Like the nice thing about them is that they are pretty separated from the rest of, you know, the DC Comics lore. It's not bogged up in the sort of like crazy crossover continuity that, say, Grant Morrison's run is. But, you know, they're fun. They have a lot of energy. They're goofy. They're a little bit meta. You know, they do a really nice job establishing her relationship with Poison Ivy. And having read those comics makes me really appreciate the animated series that much more, because like the animated series wouldn't work without what happened in these comics. And it makes me want to go back and rewatch Birds of Prey. I think I might like it more now that I understand that, you know, the modern Harley is so drastically different and so evolved from the DCAU Harley that I wasn't giving the stories with her enough credit. And they're really, really fun comics. You know, so basically they did, you know, the Harley Quinn run that started in 2013. Mm-hmm. There's a few like side comics. Like there's like a mini series where she and Power Girl are like on this like caper through space. You know, and there's another series where she teams up with a bunch of different heroes and villains over the course throughout the DC universe. And then they also did the first like 30 or so issues on the Rebirth titles, and it's all basically just one long continuity, and they're really good. Highly, highly recommend them. And so I'll put in the show notes under plugs, basically like the list and more or less the order in which you would want to read those if you felt so inclined. So I've been reading those, but then I also did a very quick catch up on Umbrella Academy Season 2.
Oh,
which you've seen now
yeah,
at this point, right?
I have.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Like, what did you think?
I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I enjoyed it as much as Season 1.
Okay.
Some characters I cared more about than others. I honestly, if this series was just Klaus and Ben, yeah. I probably would have liked it a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm glad they finally gave Ben some really cool stuff to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved Klaus's storyline. I'll be honest here. I liked it a lot just because it took place in Dallas.
That's fair. That's not fair.
And I was really excited because, like, oh my gosh, it's in Dallas. Like, I'm gonna know all these places. It really showed me how little I know about downtown Dallas.
Oh,
because I didn't recognize. I mean, obviously they didn't film it in Dallas. They filmed it in Vancouver.
It's Vancouver, of course.
It's like I'm not gonna recognize any of the places. But no, like this show has such a unique visual style that I really, really enjoy.
Did they capture the essence of what people from Dallas are like?
Uh it's a little more racist in this show.
Well, it is 1963.
Yeah. I mean they don't really show any like Dallas people really. I feel like they kind of take civil rights tropes and then like gangster tropes. And I don't know any mafias that exist in Dallas.
You don't spend time hanging out with the descendants of Jack Ruby?
I don't, unfortunately.
Oh,
I
such
did
a shame,
love how
Cameron.
they kind of like embedded themselves in every little bit
Yeah.
of the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, so for people who haven't watched it yet, after the ending of season 1, all members of the Umbrella Academy are scattered kind of across a 3-year span in the early 1960s in Dallas. And, they all kind of get embedded in, as Cameron's point, different aspects around the Kennedy assassination. A lot of it kind of hangs around that idea. But no, it is super fun. Like, you're right. Like, of course, Klaus starts a cult, which he strongly denies is in fact a cult.
It's a very small scene, but I also just love like how he starts the cult is he has Ben lift him up so it looks like he's floating,
yeah.
and so people think he has magic powers.
It's fantastic.
That is so funny.
It's very Klaus too, isn't it? Like, no, like I remember really liking season 1 and having a lot of fun with it. And for me, one of the things I loved most about season 1 was that it scratched my favorite cinematic film itch, which is like really good music tied with really good visuals. Like the soundtrack from season 1 and the pairing of scene to like soundtrack is excellent. You think about season 1, like there's that really fun scene of like the cutaway of the house and they're all dancing to
I think we're
alone now. There's the Istanbul, not Constantinople fight in the diner. There's them like running through the bowling alley, all done to Saturday Night's All Right for a Fight. Like, there's probably even more than I'm forgetting, but there's so many really memorable moments paired with really great soundtrack choices. And I think the soundtrack in season 2 is really good. There's a lot of really fun stuff in there. I think maybe it didn't scratch that itch as much for me.
It's not as integrated.
Yeah, like
it doesn't have that, as I would reference my second favorite film, it doesn't have that Edgar Wright like magic to it that he's so good at.
Yeah. But I mean, that being said, if maybe it didn't have those standout musical visual moments as much, I think the storytelling this time around is a little bit better, a little more interesting. And I didn't like the season 1 finale because it felt like they basically just kind of like Titans. They kind of just opted to not actually have a resolution and just kind of leave on a cliffhanger. But I think the way we see the characters evolve in season 2 actually makes that first season finale feel more meaningful, because it kind of makes sense that they would have run away from their responsibilities in season 1, whereas in season 2 they actually kind of address them more head on. And I thought that character growth is really, really good. And I liked how they incorporated the Kennedy stuff in there as well. And no, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's coming back for another one.
Oh, but, yeah, I mean they set it up really well. From what I know about the comics, this arc hasn't been published yet.
Oh, okay. I should read the comics at some point.
Yeah, because there's 3 stories already out of Umbrella Academy.
Okay.
And from what they're setting up, and from what I've talked to from my friends that have read it, because obviously I haven't.
Yeah.
It's the 3rd arc they just completely jumped over.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, like I will say, without spoiling it specifically, that I like how they wrapped up season 2. It felt like it had a more distinct closure point and then a nice setup for where it's going to go compared to season 1, which is kind of like an abrupt ending.
I think I enjoyed the season so much, maybe just because I have like finale goggles on for how good those last like 3 minutes were.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I really liked the finale in this, and I liked some of the new characters they throw in there too. No, but I highly recommend for me on that one. Go check out Umbrella Academy season 2.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Well, does that do it for us?
I think we did it.
Yeah.
We're always so surprised.
We're at the end? How did that happen? Oh, but I mean, we'll be back next week with the end of Static Shock. Our season 4 finale. We'll do our season 4 shortlist. What I'm sure will be a highly contentious season 4 shortlist based on our drastically varying opinions on episodes this season. But I mean, look, this is it's kind of sad to say goodbye to Static Shock, but at the same time, that means we're about ready to hit Justice League, which I think you and I, well, certainly for me, it's the show I've been most excited to come back to.
Yeah. I'm excited because I've definitely seen JLU more than Justice League. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to revisit this one.
Yeah, no, very, very excited to keep on moving with our next shows. But, given that we do have the finale next week, for those who have seen it, those remember it, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Like we said, it's the first proper DCAU finale. So, write to us beforehand, let us know what you think, and we'll talk about it next week. But you can find us at Timm Talk Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Gmail. Yep. You can find me at Lordifer on Twitter and Instagram.
And if you want to see my art, you can find that at Cameron.Dexter. And if you want to see my face, you can find that at CamDexter_adventures.
Well, boom, boom, boom. Yeah. That's it for us this week. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Bye.
A superhero Static Shock.
Woot woot.
A superhero Static Shock.
Woot woot.